Did Jesus exist? Is there any hard evidence? Throughout history, humanity has celebrated and reflected on countless figures, but among them, one stands out as perhaps the most influential: Jesus of Nazareth. Today, billions follow the teachings attributed to him, and countless debates have emerged around his life, his death, and his legacy. However, the central question remains: did Jesus really exist as a historical figure? Join us as we explore the historical evidence and unravel the mystery behind one of the most enigmatic figures in history. Recently, a comment on our video: I spent 30 days studying the 3 oldest scientific books and found this, sparked the need to study and make this video. To understand why the historicity of Jesus is a question that persists, we need to open our minds and acknowledge his importance, regardless of belief. Jesus of Nazareth is not only a central figure in Christianity, but also in Islam and the Baha'i faith. These religions have shaped much of the world's culture, history, and morality. And regardless of religious belief, the figure of Jesus has inspired millions throughout the centuries. Confirming his existence is a fundamental historical task. Historical methods for verifying existence. In historical research, scholars look for primary sources, accounts from the time a person lived, or secondary sources from those who witnessed events. For ancient figures like Jesus, direct evidence is rare. Instead, historians rely on written accounts which, while written after his death, can still provide clues. When evaluating these sources, scholars consider the period they were written in, the context, and any possible biases. For more content like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to leave a comment. We'll make sure to reply. Evidence from the New Testament. The New Testament is a central source for the life of Jesus, especially the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Historians agree that, while these texts contain theological elements, they offer the earliest accounts of Jesus. Although they were written decades after his death, they portray a figure who taught, healed, and was ultimately crucified. Paul's letters, some of the earliest writings in the New Testament, also indicate a belief in the historical Jesus. Paul claimed to have known people who had met Jesus. Non-Christian sources. Interestingly, some of the strongest non-Christian sources mentioning Jesus come from Jewish and Roman historians. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, 37 to 97 AD, who was not Christian and worked with the Romans, wrote about Jesus around 93 AD, referring to him as a wise man and teacher who was crucified by Pontius Pilate. Similarly, the Roman historian Tacitus, writing in 115 AD, references Christ, who suffered under Pilate during Tiberius's reign. These independent references provide important context, showing that even outside Christian circles, Jesus was recognized as a historical figure. Some may argue that Pilate's existence isn't proven, but archaeology found a plaque with Pilate's name proving his existence, and this year they discovered Pilate's ring. They've also found the ossuary of Caiaphas, the high priest who accused Jesus of blasphemy. Other critics of Christianity who mention Christ include Pliny, Suetonius, and Lucian of Samosata. In 112 AD, Pliny wrote to Emperor Trajan mentioning that early Christians would gather in the morning to sing hymns to Christ. Given the historical context, where all were expected to worship the Roman emperor as divine, any other worship was forbidden. Lucian of Samosata, a Greek from the 2nd century, an opponent of the church and a satirist of Christianity, wrote, "The Christians, worship a man to this day, the distinguished personage who introduced their novel rites and was crucified on that account. They are all brothers from the moment they are converted, and deny the gods of Greece, and worship the crucified sage, and live after his laws." Criteria of credibility. In analyzing these ancient sources, scholars apply criteria like the criterion of embarrassment, which argues that certain details are unlikely to have been invented due to their potentially embarrassing nature. For example, crucifixion, a punishment reserved for criminals and slaves, is something Jesus' followers would have little motivation to invent. This and other methods help historians analyze ancient texts and assess their authenticity and reliability. The mythical Jesus debate. Despite historical evidence, some argue that Jesus never existed and that his story is a myth created by early Christians. This theory suggests that the figure of Jesus was heavily influenced by myths from other cultures. However, This position remains a minority view, and among historians, it is no longer debated. With the evidence for Jesus' existence so historically plausible, even if the details of his life remain uncertain. Since the 18th and 19th centuries, as archaeology has grown, no scholar or historian denies the existence of Christ. Some may not believe he was God, but that's old news. Jesus is part of history. Perspectives from modern historians. Today, most historians, regardless of personal belief, recognize Jesus as a historical figure. Scholars like Bart Ehrman argue that denying Jesus' existence is comparable to denying other historical facts. Although debates over the details of his life continue, the consensus is that Jesus was a real person who lived in first-century Palestine and had a significant impact on his followers. Conclusion: who was Jesus? Ultimately, whether one views Jesus as a divine figure, a prophet, or a teacher, his influence is undeniable. While much about his life is still debated, for many scholars, the question of his existence has a clear answer. He was a man who walked the lands of ancient Palestine, gathered followers, and became a symbol that transcended centuries. The enduring mystery of who Jesus was, teacher, healer, revolutionary, will continue to inspire questions and exploration. Reflection. Whether you're a believer or not, one thing is certain: there's no other figure in history with a life as simple as Jesus, who became a world leader and has endured for over 2,000 years. Additionally, many of our societal concepts are based exclusively on the Bible, whether you like it or not. For example, marriage between a man and a woman, the wrongness of adultery, and so on can only be found in the Bible. What do you think? Do you believe that Jesus really existed, or do you see him as a myth shaped by history? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into historical and religious themes. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos.